video blog. So I just saw the movie Hopper. And yes, it's very easy to make animated movies and do different dialects. So you can make that movie in Spanish, same movie, and it's easy to change the animation of the characters. So you can just change the mouth movements, and it's very easy and animate it. So with technology, you can make simultaneous versions of the same animated movie and release it worldwide simultaneously. So you would release, making sure the name is correct. Hopper might mean something in some language that might not be appropriate. But again, you can release the movie simultaneously, or the cartoon simultaneously, in many countries. Now, the problem is with Sesame Street and that, you can't, but Blue's Clues, with the dog, Blue, it's all animated, and so you can just make different animated versions and globally release it simultaneously. You can release it in China, India, so it can be in Hindi, Mandarin, Cantonese, Taiwanese. Yes, even British. The British speak differently. So you want to release it with a British accent and a proper English, as they say, but the King's English. It's a different dialect than American English. And so you can release it simultaneously globally. That's the benefit of animated. Compared to human movies, it doesn't look natural. Truly, because the words are different, the facial expressions and how the characters respond to the words are different. So the facial movements are different when they say the word. Like, Feliz Navidad. Feliz Navidad, right? Merry Christmas. But Feliz Navidad, Merry Christmas, different lip movements, different pressure coming out with the voice. So it's engaging different facial muscles. And this is what people don't understand with language. It's a whole different motor skill. And so when you learn multiple languages, you're building out different motor skills, but it's also interpretations and many other things. So it crosses into many different hemispheres, and you're building out different pipelines. Now, adults, when the brain is fully formed, you map them over existing pathways. Where children, when the brain is still forming, you're building new neural pathways. It's much harder to build new neural pathways. So they studied language, and when you get to full maturity, when you learn a new language, you build it over an existing language pathway, because it needs to branch out to all these different things to make it happen, from understanding to all the motor mechanics. And so it goes over an existing neural pathway, and it redirects that pathway. So you're creating branches to that pathway. And it's not deepening the pathway. You are getting more motor content. How do you say this? You're getting the ability to understand things in other languages, but you're not building depth in the language. If you build depth, you go with synonyms and antonyms. So how many different ways can you say thank you in English? Or how many different ways are the opposite of thank you? You find the antonym for thank you. No thank you is one of them, right? And so you're trying to build the depth, and it feeds off the natural neural pathway. But when you're doing another language, because it has different tone, it needs different vocal vibrations and everything else, you're separating the pathways. It's over, but it's branching off in a different way. And so you're not going deeper into understanding. You are able to move, and this is where a linguist, you are able to move between languages, and you have an interpretory, but if you get really sophisticated, like scientific words, you're going to have difficulty. So I guess you can go into the etymology of each language. So if you build it off of etymology and figure out what are the etymological origins of each language, like ology, the O-L-O-G-Y, that's knowledge. The I-S-T that you put on, that's one who has knowledge. So ology is knowledge, and the IST is one who, like you have an ecologist, and so it's one who has knowledge of cancer. An oncologist, one who has knowledge of cancer. So if you want to go deeper, then you're going to have to study the etymological origin. And that's totally different. And so you're not going to recognize the word, but you're going to be able to break it down into its components. And from its components, you can understand the meaning. You might not be able to pronounce it at all. This is how I took the SAT. I took a semester of etymology in high school. I wish I took several years of etymology. It would have been awesome to do it for years. And we had a book for it with all the different Greek and Latin origins and so on. But the whole point is, you're trying to branch this off. And why do you think Tokyo and some places has more violence? When you have very bright cities at night, you have a conflicting thing between the natural wanting to build melatonin and calm down, and then you have the path to want to stay awake. Naturally, for millions of years, we went to bed when the sun went down. And now you have this interaction, and when you get these conflicting things, it triggers the fight or flight. So what do? We maintain distance. We have automatic dimmers on lights. I used on my Honda Accord, had an automatic dimmer rear view mirror. It automatically dimmed, but the thing is, my side view mirrors didn't automatically dim. But they should have. So you don't get blinded by the light, but the whole point is to dim it to prevent you from getting upset. Why do you think truckers turn off their lights when they come into a truck stop? People get highly agitated. It's at night, and you're taking the light, and it's taking a tranquil mood and making it violent. So truckers, when they go into truck stops, they turn off their lights. Every time I went into a truck stop, knowing it since I was 18 years old, since I drove along I-80, lots and lots of trucks, and I went into truck stops, and I noticed they turned off their light when they entered the truck stop, just kept the running lights on, but turned off their headlights. Yeah, they kept the running lights on, but they turned off the headlights. And you don't understand. It creates great agitation. And this leads to rage. The brain wants to be chill, bro. And then you stick the light in the eye, and the brain needs to decide whether it's going to attack you or move away from you. Fight or flight. You take it out of its natural rhythm of tranquility. Injecting the bright light stimulates the brain, and now you get fight or flight. So cars need to change their headlights to an auto dimming system that works with street lights and that, and it'll cut down on pollution, and it will cut down on road rage and all of that. But you don't understand. I go around solving all these problems because I'm a lover. I love peace and tranquility. I love when things move smoothly. And just because things didn't go in that way in my life didn't mean I didn't crave that. So when I had my ex, Jennifer Kim, and we moved smoothly and seamlessly together, it was the greatest thing in my life. I was so happy when we had that harmony. So this is what people don't understand. I'm born into chaos, and I get kicked out of my house on Wilson, where I was born. Grandparents died. My mother's brothers not fire sailed the house, but sold the house out from under us, forcing us to move. I have to go into a new neighborhood, make friends, and I have to take care of my parents, who, because of the stress that was brought on with the sudden death of the grandparents, who didn't do estate equalization, had no estate plan. Zero estate plan, really. The state has a will for you, but they didn't do estate planning. And it allowed my mom's brothers, who were financial savvy, and this is why I'm very much for women in financial literacy. Because I watched my mom, truly, even as a little kid, the things that happen and get taken. Like one time she bought a car, and we needed this car, and they hotboxed her using pressure in a sales office, like 3 or 4 salesmen, a sales manager and others, talking her into buying the car. We bought the car, which was a Chrysler, and the car was a piece of shit. It broke down immediately, and we had to get rid of it. And my mom lost thousands of dollars as a poor person that we didn't have, and I watched them do this, and I stayed silent. But I knew what was going on. My mother didn't know what was going on. And I didn't want her to buy the car, but she bought the car. She was pressured into buying it. High-pressured sales tactic. And they sold lemons. So I was proud of the government when it came out with the lemon law. My mother was fucked. As a poor family, we needed that car to work. And it didn't. And it brought misery and pain and more suffering into our life, making it harder for my mother to earn money to help with the family obligations. But I grow up and take care of 2 alcoholic parents, and I'm in a new neighborhood making new friends, as my brother and sister had trouble as well. And my sister was bullied, and she was beat up by other girls. She was bullied by other girls and beat up viciously, attacked by multiple girls in the back of the field house by Patrick Henry, and they beat the shit out of her. And they lured her in. Oh, they entrapped her. They suckered her. My sister wanted to fit in. They were the cool girls, and they said, oh, come behind the field house and have a cigarette with us. And I don't know, 4 or 5 girls. And once she got behind the field house, and they beat the shit out of her. And because she was the new girl, she had no friends, no one to stand up for her. But what happened? She got stronger, then one by one, truly, she beat the shit out of each of them, giving them what they deserved. She targeted each of them and beat the living fuck out of them. They beat her as a group. She learned and turned the tables and beat the shit out of them. Self-defense. That way she wouldn't be picked on anymore. But the whole point is, we're in a new neighborhood, and I'm fighting all these battles. And I grew up fighting every freaking day. And majority of all the battles are not my battles. They're other people's battles. I'm about righteousness and justice, and so I'm standing up for all these people, taking all their lumps. And I've been doing this all the time, from elementary to high school to college to workplaces, constantly taking their lumps. And then I have everybody standing against me and no one standing up. It's really disheartening. But the whole point is, I'm just looking for a little bit of peace and quiet and happiness. Tranquility. All you do is bring constant violence to my doorstep. Unfucking believable, consistent violence. And all I do is try to solve problems and create peace and harmony. And that is the sickness in you. You are some serious fucking sick people. You constantly bring all this evil to my doorstep. That is a great sickness in you. You want to create this disharmony, this imbalance. It's a sickness. And all I seek is to bring love and understanding and happiness and tranquility. But I also do know and understand people have to be killed sometimes. As the Bible shows you with King David, and before that, Moses. To bring back, not Moses, Noah, to bring back a more peaceful mankind. And then David fighting battles to preserve peace and tranquility. These people aren't warriors because they want to be a warrior. They're warriors because they have to be a warrior. Without that, things are much more evil. But they seek peace and tranquility. They want harmony. That's what I seek, but you bring the sickness to me all the time. So all I've been trying my whole life. And I thought Jen was going to stand by my side and be there for me. And I miss every day having somebody who wants to be with me, who says they love me. And I loved her. And going to bed with her. and just looking at her and just being there in presence together, and then waking up with her. And it was something I craved my whole life. I didn't know once I lost her, I'm going to be separated for 20 plus years again. And now I don't know if I'll ever have a girl again. And the funny thing is, I treated all my girlfriends not like commodities, precious. Every single one of them I treated with love and respect and dignity. I treated them as a precious asset, a gift from God. As the Bible says, love thy woman like you love thyself. I take that as a commandment. It is not an option, it is a fucking order. So I treat all these girls, and they did me wrong, and I still treat them with incredible dignity and respect, and treat them as precious and not disposable. And I'm in an island all by myself, where I watch other people in relationships, and they treat each other as commodities and disposable. And they go through each other like water. They get into it, they get whatever they wanted out of it, and then they dump the person. And this is the problem in the world. Everybody treats everybody as massively disposable. And I understand people make themselves disposable. That's why excellence before God. It's telling you, don't make yourself disposable. Make yourself priceless. But instead, you go against me with your filth and disgust and disgrace. And you make yourself a commodity. You make yourself worthless and disposable. But when you seek excellence before God, that makes you priceless. And everybody can seek that. And you don't want to get rid of them. You don't want to replace them. Like the Hopper, she misses the relationship with her grandmother. It was special. She treated her as special, and she reciprocated to her grandmother and treated her as special. Irreplaceable, irreplaceable, not replaceable, not dispensable. So you make yourself dispensable. You go the fucked up way, and you don't seek excellence, and you're garbage. You are what you do. Your works show God who you truly are, not your lip service. Scammers, you are. It's your works that show who you truly are. Anyone can say, I love God, I'm a Christian, as an example. That you can wear a cross, it's all lip service. Until you seek that excellence to be sanctified, you're disposable. And that's what the Bible tells you. You make the choice. So you make yourself disposable. That's the whole point of Revelations. You choose. Like I warned you about me, hurting me makes you disposable. Shows that you're garbage. You don't make yourself priceless. You make yourself garbage. Something we need to take out and dispose of. So you make yourself trash. When you set and go to any corporation, we used to do a thing. Oh, what is it in insurance? your strategic people. And we do this for, your strategic people. We put certain things in place. Golden handcuffs, locking them to the firm. Golden handcuffs, meaning because they're so well compensated, they stay. But also, if something happens to them, we have a policy that takes care of that, whether they get disabled temporarily or permanently. There's a policy that takes care of that gives you money to find somebody to replace them. Key man insurance. Key person insurance. These are people that are highly valuable to the organization, that make everything happen. And without them, it doesn't happen. So we understand this, and you learn this, that these people are instrumental to those businesses, priceless to those businesses, like Steve Jobs. But Apple didn't plan for Steve Jobs being gone, so they didn't find an innovator. They weren't in a search for an innovator, somebody who could innovate like Steve Jobs, who could bring these things and these concepts to them to keep on pushing their evolution, their market edge. They weren't prepared for that. They needed a CFO, a Chief Future Officer, somebody that's forward thinking, that will push the envelope of the iPhone or push the next evolution in communications, whether it be the phone or something else. A Chief Future Officer, not a Chief Financial Officer, a Chief Future Officer, who's going to keep the innovations coming one after another, after another, after another, after another. These are true geniuses. Michelangelo, Leonardo da Vinci, and many others. They just produce. It never stops for them. And why would you want them to die? If Steve Jobs didn't get sick, think of all the other things that he would have created for Apple. So, would you like people like Steve Jobs to be sick and disabled? Because it didn't do Apple well, his death. They stifled in their innovation, their market leadership. Truly, they haven't expanded, they have shrunk. So, keeping somebody who is going to push the envelope and keeping them healthy, and you think Apple would have been watching him, truly, and talking to him, the board of directors, and say, hey, Steve, you got to go work out. Hey, Steve, you got to watch your diet. Hey, Steve, and you can put this in clauses and force it. They do in the military. You get too fat, they put you on a diet. You get out of shape, they force you to exercise more. They make sure you're a lean, mean operating machine. They don't give you the option. They take it away, like the guy behind me who is consistently tailgating me. There's only one lane here. You're not going anywhere faster, so riding my ass and unsafe driving, you're not going to get there any faster unless you go around me. It's a broken lane. He can go around me and pass. It's not a solid stripe. But it's not getting you anywhere faster riding the person in front of yours ass. You're still going to get there at the same this place. So why don't you just sit back and understand you're not in first place? You're in second place. And you need Hey, fuck up! Who taught you how to drive? Where did you learn how to drive?
What?
Where did you learn how to drive? Because they didn't teach you properly.
What?
Do you know how many violations you just did? You don't care. That's good. That's where people burn in hell. See you in the fire. You're going to fry. So, he's not going to get anywhere faster. He just causes people to hate him. And this is what I don't get. You cause people to hate you, and then you cry, oh, people are so mean to me. I don't have any friends. You're a fucking asshole. Why should you? And those people that are assholes, they might have money, but then you're just a commodity. Because those people are only good time Charlies. And if they can sell you out, they'll sell you out. And our country doesn't understand that, like the Walkers and that were the spy family. They didn't compensate them well in the military. And also, like Falcon and the Snowman, what did they not do? And what did they not do with Edward Snowden? Did they not put him through a reality check and ask them, you're going to do certain things. Do you have a conflict of interest? We can reposition you into other places, but do you see a moral dilemma in this position? Like when we put you in a nuclear silo and you have to press the button. Do you have, or you're in a nuclear sub, or you're in a fighter jet, and they order you to take out the target. Or you're working a predator, and they tell you, take the shot. You want to know if somebody has moral hesitation in the chain of command. And if they have a moral and ethical conflict, then they cannot be in that role. Edward Snowden, if they did the right thing, he would have never been put in that role. And they would have tested with questions that, no, he naturally has a moral conflict and that you cannot put this person in this position. That's not what they did. They put him in the position and he had a moral conflict. So they fucked up. That's the failure of government HR. They put somebody in a position that won't push the button when you say, push that fucking button and send that nuke now. You don't want a moral dilemma. You want them to execute without hesitation, putting the key in, turning it, and mutually together pressing the button and launching it. All the security protocols, all the safety protocols are supposed to be in beforehand that make sure that it's not a mistake to launch. That all is done beforehand. Those people, when you tell them to press the fucking button, they press the button. But we also have a fail-safe in it where we can detonate the missile. So even if we press the button and launch it, we have a self-destruct mode, and we can press the button and destroy the missile. So even after we launch, we can destroy it or we can recall it. And that's what Elon Musk showed. With our nuclear missiles using Elon Musk technology, they could go right back to the silo. All he has to do is have laser finders on either side that guide it right back into the silo. So the missile can be, Tomahawk can be called off and come back. It can also be paused on site, and now they have the ability to pause it, and it can circle around waiting for execution orders, and it does have a self-destruct, but now it has a recall. And that's what Elon Musk showed with the landing, that you can actually recall a missile and put it back in the silo. That is all possible now. So you send it out and you don't need it, you don't blow it up, you just bring it back into the bunker. Come home. So again, you shit all over me everywhere I go, and all I do is try to do the right thing, and God's watching you sell out for all the evil motherfuckers to justify their fucking scumbag fucking actions. And so, instead of defense attorneys not getting them off, when somebody does something to incite you, that's self-defense. And we have different forms of how you can defend yourself, but it's still self-defense. When somebody doesn't incite you, then they're guilty. But the whole point is, it's the sickness inside you, and you want all this negativity, and you keep on bringing it into my house, fucking my world, making my life a living hell every single day. And God just wants me to live a happy and peaceful life. And you want to shit all over me. Make sure that every day when I go into movie theaters like now, 2 people sitting next to my spot. I've been going to movie theaters by myself since I was 6 years old. If somebody doesn't know that person, they don't take the seat next to them unless every other seat is sold out. So you don't book a seat next to a person if you don't know them. People want space. It's uncomfortable to sit next to a complete stranger. Anywhere in the world. Only out of necessity do they ever sit next to you. Meaning it's sold out, like in a Cubs game, standing room only. There's no other choice. But when there's a choice, just like men in the urinal, they don't come in and stand next to each other. If there's another urinal further away, they take the urinal further away. It's just like going to the toilet. If there's another stall away from somebody, they take the stall away from them. Only perverts like the senator stand next to somebody. That is not natural. They do space. Why do you think we have individual tables? Or if we would have done it, we would have never had in restaurants individual tables, and everybody would have sat at the same table. The reason is people don't want to sit with strangers. They want to sit with the people they know. That's why you have 2 tops, 4 tops, 6 tops. They don't want to sit next to a stranger. Truly, our 2 tops, they were in a row. So you're never sitting next to each other. They're in front of you or behind you, not next to you. People don't want to sit next to strangers. Unless it's some agreed upon upfront situation where you're doing a speed dating or you're doing some kind of networking and you're speed networking, and so you're going to sit usually across from them, not next to them, because people like that table in between. So again, just like speed dating, you can do speed networking. But again, it's something they go into and they know. But when you go into places like a bathroom-annette and you don't know people, people don't want to be near you. I worked in hospitality since I've been a child. So people don't gravitate to each other. Only, and the professor out of Harvard, when there was a horror flick, and she did the movies, and with the horror flick, people tend to sit next to each other. Now, the outlier, if you're very confident in your skill set, meaning your ability to defend yourself, then you won't sit next to each other. You don't need them. You're confident in your ability. These people aren't confident in their ability to defend themselves, so they seek the masses. But you get a Navy SEAL or somebody else in there, and they're very confident in their ability to provide for themselves in a life-threatening situation, and I know this for a fact, they won't get next to other people. Next to other people means those people could be a threat to them as well. So they stay away. They don't do what other people do that seek the huddle masses. They're very confident in their ability to handle situations, so they like the distance. So they don't go into the crowd. They tend to stay outside the crowd. The crowd is a threat. It's a different perspective. The huddle masses seek the crowd for protection, pack animals. And so you seek others that they'll do the right thing and protect you. And you will protect them. And so you seek the masses for protection. But when somebody has extensive survival capabilities, they don't need the masses. And that's why they'll live in the cabin in the woods. They're confident with their self and their ability to provide for themselves and their ability to survive in all forms of circumstances, even if they get injured. Truly, and they take into account that even if they trip and fall and break themselves or hurt themselves, that they can take care of the situation and survive. So they don't seek the masses. So it's totally different. These people show you how weak they are. These people are not confident in their abilities. So it's a different thing. So they seek the masses. Jesus didn't seek the masses. He was very confident in his ability to provide for himself. So he isolated himself. He didn't need the masses. You know, run over the girls? So, anyways, so it's a totally different selection process for Delta Force or SEALs or some other special forces, where they work in very small units, or sometimes they work all by themselves. Oh yeah, they're all by themselves. And they're very confident they can handle themselves. It's a whole different skill set. So they're very confident they don't need the masses. But anyways, it was a good experiment to read at Harvard. But again, you can see how people cling to, like your little child. He clings to you. And that shows how dependent they are. When they start getting more confident, when they get older, they start getting a little bit more distance. That's why during the teen years, they move away from the parent naturally. And it's a good thing, because they trying to find independent thinking, independent survival skills. So they push away. And if they don't, then your child has a serious problem. They're anchoring because they're insecure. But the thing is, who they anchor to when they push away from you is another thing. Will they go with individuals just because they're popular? Not because they're the right fit, just because they're popular. And they will hang around, and this is where these people get the influence. And you need to make sure they're around the right influencers. But also, you have to teach them to be their own person. And when I say that, just being able to do things on your own. As I went to the movies all by myself at 6 years old. I did a lot of things all by myself. I was comfortable being perfectly alone, doing my own thing. So here in Chicago, but again, surely, do you teach your children to have the right balance? That way they can make independent decisions and the right decision. And when they have to separate from somebody, they can separate from them. They're not going to stay with them if they're taking them down the wrong path. They need to be able to cut them loose. Like, hey, bro, I can't have you drown me, meaning I can't have you take me down this path. That is something I don't agree with. And making sure, the one thing I learned, like with the Italian Mafia, I might have known them and they talked to me, but I never hung out with them. And I certainly never got indebted to them, where they can use leverage. The Bible tells you to be indebted to no person. It uses the word man. It's a substitute for no person now. Back then, they used the word man. It was universal for person. But it tells you not to be indebted, because when you're indebted, they gain leverage on you. The Bible is not against debt when it's a tool used correctly and you set it up and you can handle situations. If they recall the debt, you have other strategies to pay off the obligation and move forward. But you're not supposed to use debt unless you're using it constructively to improve your life. So you're not supposed to enslave yourself. That's what the Bible is talking about. It's one thing of using debt as a tool. It's another thing to self-enslave. And the Bible doesn't want you to be self-enslaved. Like New York Life, it's not indebted to anyone. Do you know that? New York Life can pay off every one of its policies and still have billions left. So if every one of its policyholders died tomorrow, they could pay every single one of its policies, every single penny, and still have billions left over, and the organization would still be sound. Even if every policyholder died tomorrow, New York Life would still be up and running. That's why you buy a New York Life policy. You know that no matter what, if a catastrophic like 9/11 hits, or they drop a nuclear bomb on an area and all those people die, they're going to pay out every single obligation. In the history of life insurance, you know, every death benefit has been paid out. Not a single death benefit has never not been paid out in the history of life insurance. That's why life insurance firms are conservative. They have to meet their obligation. People don't want them to be edgy. And that's why banks have a risk management tool that the Fed puts in, making sure they can meet the demand and the obligation. And if every policyholder pulled out of Chase, does Chase have enough money, meaning in their own reserves, like Apple? Apple could have no customers and still stay afloat. They have a couple $100 billion. So they could have no cell phone sales, no nothing. They might shut down their factories. But Apple's not going anywhere. It has like $200 billion. So if they didn't sell things, they just shut down everything and pay off whatever obligations and still be a viable corporation. And that has substantial market value. Other corporations, they're upside down. And if they don't get money, they're hand to mouth, and they make hand to mouth decisions. And if they don't get money, they're screwed. Like Saudi Arabia. I'll give you an example. They were able to push down the price of oil as we had an embargo against Russia, and we asked them to pump more oil to push down the global price. And they said, no problem. And what did they do? They could do it. It cost them money, and they bled from their reserves and spent hundreds of millions and billions of dollars. And those were losses. They truly were losing, but it was no big deal. Yeah, we can bleed and push down oil prices for a while, and no problem. How long do you want us to suppress oil prices for? To hurt Russia? Because you remember Saudi Arabia, Putin called and had a meeting, and when we found out the jet landed in Russia, and they didn't get off the jet, and they took right back off and left Russia. And then we told them to start pumping and suppress global oil prices. And they said no problem. They brought oil prices down, and they were losing money, but supporting us against Russia, dropping global market prices to put pressure on Putin. And they were bleeding money, but they had shitloads of money in reserve. That's why they have a sovereign wealth fund in that. So they're immunized. So they can bleed billions of dollars, and it's no big deal. So can the U.S. bleed billions of dollars, or do they need, if you cut off 1 year of income tax from the U.S. government, does the U.S. government collapse? Germany immunizes itself. So if they don't have any taxes coming in for a year or years, they would still be perfectly fine. The German economy, meaning the German government, is not going to collapse. But the U.S. government will collapse, and Japan is on the same thing. And if they don't get that revenue, they're on very shaky ground at, 100 and something percent, 200%. They're highly levered up. And that's what they call paper millionaires. If they don't keep the paycheck coming in, everything they have goes away. And the Bible tells you not to be that way. You need to immunize yourself. Is our city and county and state, the rainy day fund? How about the rainy years fund? So if the United States is going to be strong, they have to have unbelievable in reserve. And I'm talking trillions and trillions and trillions and trillions of dollars that are just invested, that are never touched. But all these people and the politicians have their little greedy hands, and they got to burn through everything. Germany learned from World War I and World War II, unbelievably harsh circumstances, that we're going to have massive reserves. So if we don't get tax revenue, no big deal. So how vulnerable is Illinois? If you stress tested it and it didn't get any federal max or any tax revenue, would Illinois collapse? Probably. That means it's not a good investment. It can't even meet its pension obligations, showing it's not a good investment. I try to do things differently, and I want it to be a good investment, and I want it to be immunized and protected. So go the way of the deadbeats and spend every fucking penny you get. So be indebted to everybody. God said you must pay me. Why? So you're not indebted to me. But if you don't pay me, then you're massively indebted to me. And if you die with that obligation, he's going to burn you. So you're going to fry. But that's your choice. Because you welched on your obligation. You didn't show that you're of good character. Go into the Goldman Sachs model, character lending, or the International Monetary Fund's character lending. By not paying me and depriving me, it shows you're not of good character. Why would God ever put you in fucking heaven? The only thing you deserve is to be totally burned in eternal fucking damnation. You're not individuals of upstanding character. You're little lying, weasel, fucking backstabbing little fucking whores. You speak with forked tongue. You're fucking horrible people. So, to hide your deception, you fucked me over in every way possible. You stabbed me in the back. You lied to me. You deceived me. It's sickening. You don't pass the character test. You are satanistic and demonic. You reek. You are extremely sick. And I come down here to see if people have good character. Are they good and upstanding moral conduct? Or are people just scumbags? 1970s, scumbags, the most violent decade in U.S. history. People were horrible moral character. Scumbags all over the place. Pieces of freaking garbage left and right. So, I don't get it. It's unbelievable. People that don't want to work their way up, like here's the Nederlander and the Pellis and the Joffrey. You have an understudy like Drew Bledsoe to Tom Brady. Tom Brady didn't do anything to undermine Drew Bledsoe. And Drew Bledsoe didn't do anything to undermine Tom Brady. When they earned it, they received it, and they kept it. It was theirs. And they supported each other. Drew was the starting quarterback. He went down, couldn't come back fully. Tom Brady became the quarterback. Drew Bledsoe stayed second fiddle to Tom Brady and fully supported him and continued to mentor him. The seasoned veteran continued to mentor the rookie. But Tom Brady was on the sideline doing the charting and everything, sharing his information with Drew Bledsoe, trying to keep him to be the best. He didn't try to screw him over, knife him in the back. He got hurt on the field and everything, and he couldn't come back fully. And so Tom Brady stayed in the role. He didn't wish that upon him, but he did seize the day when it came. An understudy prepares. But they do everything to support you. They don't try to knife you in the back. There'll be eventually a transition. Sometimes sooner, sometimes later. But the play must go on. And that's why they develop understudies. If you get sick, or maybe somebody dies in the family and you have a funeral, and you can't go on stage that night, that person has to step in. So, again, you don't go with the weasel. You go with somebody who truly knows their second fiddle and eventually will wait their time. And eventually there will be a transition. But we call it smooth transition and power. We emphasize that under, the Constitution and everything. When one party steps out and the other party steps in, there is a smooth transition and power. And that party going out can't undermine the party coming in. They must give them full disclosure, full support, because it's for the benefit of the country. You lost, they won. You do everything to support the transition smoothly. And lots of lives are depending on it. 80 countries, 750 military bases need a smooth chain of command. When there's a transition from one president to another, there can't be a gap in decision. That president comes in, so they start giving him the security briefings he sits on before he ever steps in the role of president. He gets all the security briefings. He gets up to speed way before that, way before the transition happens. He's already sitting in on cabinet meetings, security briefings, and everything. He's getting a lay of the land. So there can be a seamless handoff. And the prosecutor, the state attorney general, and everything else, I should say the federal attorney general, but let's say the governor's office, the state attorney general can prosecute people in the party for sabotage. So if we get a new president in from Trump, and Trump tries to sabotage, or anyone in the administration tries, they must press charges against them as enemies of the state and prosecute them for espionage, sabotage, and many other violations. So there needs to be a full and smooth, seamless transition. And they can't have it any other way. Because there's nuclear silos, there's military fleets. They can't have a void in understanding. We have treaties, we have all this stuff that they have to understand and be able to hit the ground running. And if the other party sabotages it, then they need to be prosecuted and put in jail. So again, it needs to be smooth transitions. And they have to respect the flow of government. We have to have seamless and perfect transitions. Seamless and perfect. No hiccups. From the federal to the state to the county to the local. When the one mayor steps out, there are other mayors in the office the next day. He's already been briefed way before he got it with his transition team, and he's off and running. The city doesn't miss a heartbeat, not a single step. It is perfectly seamless, and if not, people get prosecuted for espionage. Because it is sabotage, espionage. And they need to whack them. So we have the National Guard. We have the state police and many others that they need to make smooth transitions and be in office to make decisions instantly. And that means they have to be fully up to speed. They can't be in a vacuum where they don't know. So when one party, and that's why they don't immediately take office. Do you know that? That's why they win the election in November and don't get into like January, I forget, but there's several months. And the point is the diplomatic offices and everything that's going, there's so much in work that it must be perfectly smooth. Seamless. Perfection. That's what the founding fathers wanted. Seamless perfection. Even Larry Kudlow said, and he's a hardcore Republican. He said, when the Democratic thing is, we could compete on bills and stuff we put up, but he's still the president, and we still fully support them. He might not be the person you want, but you respect the office. You respect the office. You don't have to respect the person, but you respect the office because you got to do the right thing by the people. You made a mistake. Get a recall election. Scott, who was the governor of Wisconsin, he went through a recall and he won it. But it was okay for a Republican to have a recall election, and it was the teachers union that won him the recall. He wanted to improve elementary and high school education. That was his focus. And the teacher unions didn't like it because he wanted some higher standards, and that meant some teachers either were to get up to speed or be fired. Rahm Emanuel ran into the same thing with the city of Chicago. He wanted higher standards and review for performance of the teachers, and Karen Lewis and others were protecting a base that was underperforming. He wanted performance standards, and if they don't meet it, either they get retrained and get up to speed, or they get fired because they shouldn't have been in there, and that's bad hiring process. The HR of the Chicago Public Schools failed, bringing in shitty teachers. Oh yeah, that's right. Human resources and hiring. Bringing in unqualified or underqualified people who can't produce good students. So he had problems with the teachers union. And she had connections to the old guard of Daley Democrats. He had his people, only a light, he kept all the entrenched Democrats. So that was a serious problem, because if you keep everybody from the old administration and you start going off and doing your own thing, they resist. So when David took over a bank, He gave them certain things to do, and if they didn't do it and complete it with the best of their ability as soon as they could, he fired them. They're not part of my team. And that's how you test them, to see if they're on board. And that's what Rahm didn't do, and that's why he's not mayor anymore. Because he had too much of those that were anchored to Daley, that were anchored to Karen Lewis, and he couldn't get reform with the Chicago Public Schools and the teachers. Because they were sabotaging them from within. So you have to give them the opportunity to hang themselves. You give them tasks and see if they can cut it. And if they can't, you get rid of them. They're the poison within. You don't want the poison within. David knows this. He's run many banks, my old partner, Kudo. And he understands that. And he can have employees that resist his new change, his new direction. So he gives them an opportunity to hang themselves. And he goes up to him, he's like, you didn't meet the standards, you fired yourself. And the funny thing is, Nick used the same thing when he took over Platinum Wealth, which was Great Lakes. He gave us all these different things to do, and so the staff. And the ones that didn't, like Pat, she was part of the staff, she got fired. Deanna did them and accomplished them. She stayed. So just because they're a Republican doesn't mean they're your Republican. You want to make sure they're on board with your agenda, or Libertarian Party, or whatever. So when you go into a corporation and you're transitioning CEOs, you better make sure that those people that you're transitioning into, like the change of Berkshire Hathaway, from Warren Buffett to somebody else, he's got to give all those new people, his senior executives, tests. And those senior executives, once proven, need to test their underlings. And it goes all the way down to the bottom throughout the whole organization, making sure from the top to bottom, everybody's on board. It takes a little bit, a year or two, but you're cleansing the whole organization. You know who should stay and who needs to go. And you give them exit packages. And you put them with placement firms. You can't stay here, but it doesn't mean you have to leave the field. And we give you this severance package, plus here's the placement firm that will put you with and have a good life. But you're no longer part of our organization. So again, there has to be a great cleansing, and that's why you can't have illegal aliens. Because they've done nothing to prove they're on board with the agenda of the United States. They didn't go through any vetting, background checks, or anything else. You have no idea what your thing is, and that's what you talk about sleeper cells. Well, the highest risk is undocumented people. I know it's saying like, oh, they're not all bad. But the point is, it's not that they're all bad. It's the risk is too great that some of them could be extremely bad. So you're already having imperfections, as you saw with 9/11. We didn't check on the student visa, making sure the kid was going to school of the one terrorist. We didn't check on the work visas. And I don't know if others overstayed their visas, but there was no verification once they were in country. And then they did no verification of how the fuck are you paying for an education in the United States? Where was the money coming from as a immigrant? Where was the money coming from to pay for independent flight lessons? Do you know how expensive flight school is? They paid for a shitload of flight lessons, and they didn't verify the funds. The know your client thing, the source of funds. They didn't verify the funds. The funds were from illegal sources. So that's another screw up. So it's too great of a risk to have illegals. And then you have to purge everything else anyways. As we have all these gangs and that, shame on the high schools. Truly, all these gangs stem mostly from high school kids that get recruited in that, and the high schools tolerate the gangs. You have to have an inside and outside ethical code. That if you do certain outside criminal activities, you're removed from the school and you go to juvenile detention. You're not staying in the school. You got to purge those people immediately. So if they have gang affiliations, either they separate, and that's where police should be telling the high schools, these kids are known to have gang affiliations. So they can monitor them in the high school and warn them if you continue on with any type of affiliation, and we know who the other people are that are in the gang, and if we see you hanging out with them and interacting together, we will move you out of the school. You'll get a voucher and we'll place you into some other school away from them. We will break up the gang. And that's what they're supposed to do, to disperse it. Send them to other schools. Break them up. But the police have to tell the school about these associations. Like, this kid is dealing drugs. This kid has this. The school has to know what they're dealing with. And if they find it in the school, they got to report it to the police so they can monitor outside activity. We have a kid in school that we're having issues with, and we think they're dealing crystal meth, and they tell the Chicago Police Department. So when they step out of school, the Chicago police got a tip from the high school to look into this kid that has these illegal actions, that they're having problems in the school, so they can address those things outside of school. But we don't do that here, do we? It's just like the universities and everything, and the employers. If you have somebody inside and they're doing things inappropriately, and you can't terminate them per se, but you can report them to the detectives at the police department saying, we have these actions going on at work, and this person gets continuously disciplined, but they're still with us because of union contract or whatever, that we just want to let you know that you might want to look into his actions outside of our workplace. If he's doing this inside the workplace, we just want to make sure that he's not doing these things outside the workplace. So they report them to detectives. Truly, And that's who's supposed to investigate. So they have all forms of detectives here, and they turn them over and they look into it in their outside activity. It seems like they're part of a gang in school. You contact the police and say, well, this guy seems to have gang affiliations in the school. And the detectives look into their outside behavior. And it seems like, yeah, they have outside affiliations. This kid is dealing with this group and hanging with these individuals. So now you know it's in school and it's outside of school. And then you collaborate to solve the problem. How are we going to deal with this individual? Do we need to move him to another school? But if he moves to another school, is he going to recruit people like they did with the gangs when they broke them up from the projects? They scattered them around, and in the areas they got into, they started recruiting and building the gang in the area. So they created all these cells all over the city, and they started rebooting the gang and building it, and it ended up having gang cells for different gangs like the Black Disciples all over the city. They were in one place, but when they scattered, they set up territory and started building the gang in each of those neighborhoods. So we had all these cells all over the place. So they need to work with law enforcement and turn it over to the detectives. And we have state, county, we have local, state, and county, and some small areas don't have detectives. So you use the county or the state police. They have detectives. Beautiful girl. So again, we can do this all over the country, and in U.S. territories like Puerto Rico, they have lots of problems with gangs and criminal organizations. And so there has to be this inside-outside collaboration, private-public partnership, solving the problem. But I grew up, and the gangs pushed me out a lot of places, and they went to high school. And they were hanging out as gang members in the high school, and they were hanging out as gang members outside the high school, doing very bad things. So they have a collaboration where the school watches them when they're in the high school, and the police watch them when they step out of the high school. Public-private partnership, per se. And it is a public school, but they're in the school. And they're being watched in the school, and the police watch them when they hit the streets. Making sure they're not getting into trouble. They're not doing what they're not supposed to do. So we need to get a better collaboration. We can solve this problem. We can take it to Europe and other places in the world. And you can destroy this. The ability for the Yakuza or the Triad to recruit. They have elementary and high schools in China. And if they have an inside-outside partnership that is seamless, they can destroy these organizations. But there has to be a cooperation, whether it's a private school or public school, with outside law enforcement. And so the only option they have is they're going to go to jail and be forced to reform in there, or they're going to repent themselves and turn away willingly. But you have the screws to them. So they can't do things in school and hide, and they can't do things on the outside and hide it from the school. It's seamless. No weak links. And so we can start dismantling this. They have schools in Mexico. And that's why I don't believe in juvenile delinquents. This is why you have to go to school. In child abuse, you have to go to school. And that's why I believe in annual physicals. And every child has to have a state ID. It solves these problems. And as the more we do it, we'll perfect it. And these problems will go away in China, India, Europe, Russia, other parts of the world. They'll be dismantling them. And it'll be very, very hard for them to operate. Like in the Middle East. Accountability inside and outside of school. Hard for them to join terrorist organizations. So again, that helps cleanse the Middle East and everything. It really is a major problem solver. That you get this seamless cooperation, and the only choice they have is the righteous and just path. And if not, they go bye-bye. And nip it in the bud. If you give them an inch, they take them out. You don't give them an inch. So we have to do this from the elementary to the high school to the college. That we can't allow these incorrect affiliations. That's why we had the mob and everything else. And you can't allow these people not to go to school. And so you don't get these situations like, oh, we didn't know he was being abused. Well, they're supposed to know these things, and they're supposed to inspect them in gym class and everything else. So we can dismantle this all. Not only here, but everywhere in the world. Systematically. So as we move forward, the world just keeps on cleansing itself and getting better and safer. I mean, look at Jeffrey Dahmer in no one knew what he was doing outside of work. What was he doing inside of work? Truly. When he worked, what was he like? That sets a profile for HR people to look for. Or people like Ted Bundy that didn't hold a job, per se. He needs to file a tax return, right? How many tax returns did Ted Bundy file? Where was he getting his revenue? How was he able to survive? How was he able to move around in 7 states? Because you have to file an annual tax return. So when they mix taxes, these things have to be looked into. The IRS turns it over to the police. And they do. And they have to do a safety check. And they have to figure out, why the fuck didn't you file your tax return? We want to know. Because what are you hiding? Like the little gangbangers and everything. Where the fuck are you getting your money from? Al Capone, he got put in jail for tax violations. So can these gangbangers and criminals. So the IRS turns it over to the police. The state of Illinois turns it over. That's why I believe in state tax returns. I think every state should require people to file a tax return. But somehow you want to make it disgruntled and make it QuickBooks and many other things, integrate it, making it easy, but you have to prove your revenue sources. That's why I don't believe in the black market and jobs under the table. You make it, the IRS has to make it very easy to comply. The problem is we don't make it simple, stupid. We have to come up and work with the private sector to come up with things that make it simple stupid, like Biz something, the file your LLC, and it has everything, and it does all the compliance and everything for you. And so you have the accounting and everything else, setting up business checking and everything else you need, so you can separate the business funds from the personal and you transfer in between. But we have to make things where people don't have to be over fucking whelmed. We got to keep it simple, stupid. But think about the IRS could have caught Ted Bundy and many of these other people, because how the fuck are you surviving? Where's the money coming from? Like pain and gain. Those people had to file tax returns, right? How did they get that house? Because that was transferred to them, right? And then they're filing returns and everything. The movie Pain and Gain. So the IRS turns it over to the police. Truly. It worked seamlessly with each other. That's what they do with the Treasury agents. The IRS turns things over to the Treasury agents to investigate. So again, they should have caught Jeffrey Dahmer. That's horrible on human resources. Funding a serial killer? I mean, Ted Bundy, I doubt if he filed tax returns. And the IRS never said, hey, we have this person, he's alive, he has a driver's license, he's not filing. And turns it over to detectives to do a little knock on the door. And I do mean they need to knock, and we want to know why you're not filing your taxes. Is there a problem that you need assistance and that you're not able to? Then we can hook you up. But all these little weasels get away with things, like all the drug dealers like Corey. He should have been filing taxes. Or all these people like have all this money. How the hell did they get the money? Because it sure wasn't coming from a legal source of income. They were living way beyond their recognized income. Corey never had a job, and he was spending money like water. How the hell is that possible? So again, how is he paying his rent? That's why parents, when they give to their kids, they have to keep a transaction report. Jen did, of all the money she gave me. And what I gave, all the money that I spent on her for the first 2 years. And then she paid me back. But again, from the local Department of Revenue to the county to the state to the IRS, which is the federal Department of Revenue, and then they work with all these things. How are these people able to purchase houses, purchase cars? How are they able to do any of this? How are they able to set up the shell companies? How are they able to pay the attorneys? The attorneys have to disclose where their income's coming from. I told you all those fraudulent transfers to attorneys. How was John Gotti and all these people legally paying for their lawyers? Truly, there is some serious flaws in the system. And if we address these flaws, and we're in the forever purge, it's not today, it's forever. And you keep on refining your ability to identify and from there address the issue fast and effectively. Godspeed. So again, we can't let people in and they think they can bypass the border. They don't have to go through the visa system. They don't have to, check in with their officer. Whoever describes in the visa should be checking in with them and making sure, are you still at this employment? Truly, they need to know, are they still employed at that company? And if not, like in my friends in Cancun, if you got terminated, they gave you 2 weeks to find a new job. And if not, you were deported from the island. They monitored all employment. And if you couldn't find a job, you were removed from the island. It was to keep threats out, keep from gangs and people being unemployed and doing gangs, joining, cartels and everything else. They didn't want them on the island. Either you were working or you were gone. That's why the Bible says if you don't work, you don't eat. It's an accountability system. They get eyes on you constantly, from your human resources to your tax filings to everything. So again, we can do better. And they need to implement this in the elementary, high school, and colleges and workplace. And they should do the case study on Jeffrey Dahmer. How did human resources miss that they were employing a serial killer? Case study. Then the IRS has to look into a case study of how the hell did they allow Jeffrey Dahmer for all those years, Jeffrey Dahmer, Ted Bundy for all those years, did he file taxes and were they fraudulent or did he not file taxes? And why weren't we tracking him between 7 states? So again, how was he buying the cars? How was he paying for the gas? All that.